Welcome everyone, and a great opportunity to just get back on track. As just wanted to wait until the last minute to get this preview in as we go into Peru. The soap opera that's been Peru, the drama that's been Peru, but also the consistency and also the wherewithal and understanding of what Peru needed to do with and without possibly Paulo Guerrero. Of course, things came out very positively for the Peruvians as they were able to get their captain back. But this national team's a little bit more than that. This national team is more about the collective. Yes, Guerrero's a very, very, very important part of this team. But he would tell you, and many others would tell you, that this team is about each other, that this team is about every other part of this squad being able to make a difference in their specific role to really create things for one another. Now, tactically speaking, without getting into the more philosophical and life lesson type of diatribe that you can tend to get into with this team, this Peru side definitely is one of those teams that likes to pressure, that's very aggressive, that likes to really bite at your ankles, if you will, if you're a team that possesses the ball or tries to play that style. They look to take the ball away from you. They look to pressure and try and maximize your errors in those aspects. It's a team that really shows that intensity with every single minute, and they believe it this time around. One of the biggest problems that Peruvian football has had for the past decades, I want to have the emphasis on that particular thing, is that Peruvian football has undergone major changes. Not necessarily all of them good. This is why this particular group, this particular team, this particular era is so important for the game. This national team has really been able to capture the imagination of the populace in Peru and have them dreaming about doing, not just doing something that some Peruvians had never even imagined. I mean, adults that are well into their 30s either don't have a recollection or never even saw the Peruvian national team in a World Cup. Just think about that for a second, just to kind of marinate on that, to understand 36 years is quite a bit. It's, pretty much an entire lifetime, if you will. And that's what makes this team so special in those circles. That's what makes this team so different and looking to change the narrative. Mind you, if you look at South American football, you will know and you will understand that Peruvians are amongst the most technically sound, most technically gifted players in that part of the world. That's some heavy stuff that I'm saying right now with, Argentine players, Brazilians, Uruguayans, and Colombians. You would probably put Peruvians at the very top, not at the very top, but they would be making a conversation. They would be making points to be amongst the most technical in South America. Now, the disciplinary issues that they've had in the past, yeah, that is a major issue. That has been a problem for Peru in the past, and it's been a lesson that they had to learn, a very harsh one at that. Many players on this team learned those harsh lessons and learned them the hard way. Jefferson Farfan and Paulo Guerrero amongst those two of those leaders on this team that learned those hard lessons and became better leaders because of it. You can learn based on those types of adversity. Either those that you face because life puts them in front of you, or because you put them in front of yourself. So you start to see that type of evolution as a specific type of stimulus, if you will, that has these types of individuals grow. But now, as I mentioned, tactically, it's a team that pressures, that's able to reduce spaces, that's able to swarm back and forth defensively and really do a great job on transition. Now, when they have possession, they're a team that likes to play very wide. They do have the players to do it, especially with that 4-2-3-1. You have a back line that can really do some important things with Trauco on the left. And you could start looking at Aldo Corso on the right, or even Advíncula on the right, depending on how, who they face and how they face them, that you can have that type of variation at right back, a player that can be very solid going up, maybe not really as much as Advíncula, but Aldo Corso can do a really good job in that function. Of course, Trauco on the left can also create that. You have two players in the middle of the pitch. Of course, the player that you start focusing on if you're the opposition and you start looking at Peru, of course, is Josimar Yotun, who can really create some important things and really be the aggressor in the middle. But then also you start to look at what he ends up being vulnerable towards. He can be a little bit over aggressive at times, and that's what creates the problems for Peru, or creates the benefits for the opposing team. So that's one thing to look at as well when you start to analyze this side. Now, when you have a midfield with Cristian Cueva, with Andre Carrillo, with Edison Flores, and maybe even with Jefferson Farfan now, then you start to look at a team that really can create some problems with players that can penetrate, that can run, and of course can create spaces for one another. Up top, of course, mentioning Guerrero, mentioning Farfan too, because he can play in that function. He's shown it, but he doesn't have the same functionality. He doesn't have the same qualities that Guerrero does, and neither does Raúl Ruidíaz, who's been one of the most dominant goal scorers in Mexico for the past couple of years. So that's another thing to really be looking at when you're dealing with a Peruvian side that can create those types of mismatches, but also can really hurt you if you start to go and create. I mean, you have other players. You start looking at players like Andy Polo, Renato Tapia. Of course, he's the partner for. He's the partner that that plays alongside Josimar Yotun on the opposite side. And he too creates those situations where they're kind of like the stop gaps, the protection for that back line, if you will. So there's a lot of great potential for this Peruvian side. And I would not be surprised if this team is the revelation of the tournament. This team has the pieces and they have the belief in the system, but they also have the belief in their coach, in Ricardo Gareca, who ironically back in 1985 knocked Peru out of the World Cup with his goal when he was with the Argentine national team. Knocked out Peru. Puts in Argentina, but an Argentina side that at the time was struggling. He ends up not going to the World Cup, but of course they end up winning it that same year. Him and of course a couple other players, Miguel Ángel Russo, who's now a coach. He's over at Millonarios, coach Boca Juniors, very successful coach in Argentina, as was Gareca during his time over at Vélez Sarsfield. Of course, for Gareca, this job was redemption for what happened to him over at Palmeiras. Immediately comes over to the Peruvian national team, has a little bit of trouble coming in from the start, but then as soon as he's able to understand the pieces that he had at his disposal, he's able to do wonders, and he's able to really become, I don't know what would be the next level, right below patron saint of a country, but he's pretty much around that level. So Peru, looking forward to seeing them. Now, how far will they go? I don't know. But what I surely do know, and I'm aware of very well, is that this team has a potential to really do some incredible things.